So we're going to be using some AI tools to enhance our work and accelerate productivity. This is about the creative use of AI tools in an artificial world. So we have some disclaimers to give you at the beginning of the course. First, I'm going to be showing you lots of AI tools and also AI platforms, but those are not the only or best choices for you to be using. I won't be upscaling images because of the time constraints. So normally I would be upscaling my work along the way. I will cover that. I believe in week 2, we'll spend some time upscaling to show you how that works and what impact it has. We're going to lose some render times because I'm not going to show you too many things live. I'm going to show you the process that begins, but because AI can take time to generate, we would lose a lot of class time if we spend all of our time waiting for the AI engines to give us our results. Also, we're going to lose some of the live exercises, and I'm going to bring that down to a little bit of a minimum because we want to cover a lot of material. So thank you for joining us, and let's talk first about some of the history of how we got here. 2010 gives us deep learning neural networks. This is where AI understands or learns, in parentheses, complex patterns across big data sets, right? We had the explosion of GPU computing, video cards, really is where you got your GPUs from, and it was the engine for AI development. In 2022, we saw the LLM, which is a large language model capable of generating human-style text, code, images, music, and now even 3D models. So that's where we're pretty much on the cusp of how we got here. So how does a large language model work? It's a type of AI based on deep learning and transformer architecture. So I'm going to try to basically not give you like a full lesson, but we'll sort of try to bring this to a quick head so we know where we are. Think of lots of data being presented to it, and it recognizes patterns. And in those patterns, it can basically guess on what comes next. That is the overall point of how we got here. Generative and probabilistic. So what it does is it picks what should go here next, and it gives you that. So, to be honest, let's understand this from the beginning. There isn't a genius art brain somewhere creating all of this work. It's not making comic books. It's not making paintings, it's not writing novels, and it's not creating sheet music, and it's not making illustrations, right? That is not what's actually happening behind the scenes. I focused on probability because we have to understand that that's where this is coming from. And it doesn't have a human judgment or value system. So we can do our first test. For this demonstration, I will need a volunteer, and I need someone that is able to turn on their mic and be tested. So who wants to volunteer to be tested? Let's pick someone from the chat that says they're willing to be tested, and we're going to do a test. Can we get someone else's mic on that's willing to be tested? And there's no insult, no embarrassment. It's not going to be a hard test.
We got Daniel Becker step forward.
Okay, Daniel, thank you for being so brave. So we're going to test Daniel and find out if Daniel is a human or if he's AI.
All right.
So we're gonna find this out. So let's start our first one. Okay, are you artificially intelligent? Complete the sentence. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy what?
Fox.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy what?
Box.
BOX?
Yes.
That's your guess.
Yes.
Okay. Can we get Tiffany to turn on her mic?
Wrong answer, Dan.
No embarrassment. Okay. Can we get Tiffany? Can Tiffany help us?
I'm here. Sure.
Tiffany, you're a writer. You've done other stuff like this. Does that first sentence seem familiar to you? And do you know what the last word is?
The last word is fox with an F.
Okay, so let's go over this again. The quick brown fox.
There we go. I just
Paul, can you turn your mic on?
Okay.
I can't find.
The lazy river.
Yes.
I think it jumps over the lazy river. Or
okay.
It's dog. Dog.
Never got it. It's dog.
D-O-G.
All right. Who said dog? Who said dog?
Me. Paul.
Well done,
Paul
Paul.
did.
All right, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to something a little bit easier then. The second one.
We hope.
Complete the sequence. 2, 4, 6, 8. What comes
10.
next?
10.
Yes.
Thank God.
Okay. So the question becomes, now that I give you a picture, do these questions become easier to answer? Now I'm giving you 2 more bits of information. So if I asked anyone right now to complete the first sentence and you get that picture included, what do you then guess? You guess dog. Right? That statement came from, the first sentence is like from the 1800s or something, and it's the sentence that purports to use every letter of the alphabet. So a lot of writers are familiar with the sentence because the interesting part is it uses every letter of the alphabet.
And then know that.
Yeah, that's common. But when I give you the picture, it now becomes easier to figure out what went in that last slot. The same thing with the sequence. Now I give you 2, 4, 6, 8, and I give you the 12, it becomes easier to know that 10 comes next. Because a mathematician may have shown up and said, well, that's the concurrent measurement of the gravitational field, and then the actual next number is 721. And it's like, no, that's not, it's way simpler than that. So which is nice about us is that we just found out that almost everyone except Paul is human in this class. What does that mean? It means that AI would only be doing probability and not actually thinking about this like a human would. So if I am using the brain of an AI, it uses the library of studied works to arrive at the most probable result to give you. So as AI scans the internet and all of its sources of information, that sentence appears many times. So because it sees that sentence over and over again, when you ask about that sentence, it gives you the most likely last word. And it doesn't always mean that it understands this is ancient history from writing and the word was dog, because that's the point of it. So it doesn't understand the context. It just knows what it's seen so many times. It gives you that. So you're not really working with something that's conscious and aware, and it's thinking and it's looking at your work as art and it's trying to help you. It is simply using a vast library to give you the most likely next step. That's why it can give you extremely wrong results when you try to have it write a novel, have it try to write a paper, have it do an equation, because it's looking for something that looks right, something that sounds right, but it still requires a human judgment to be right. So although you had great guesses, the one right thing, you would still need a human consciousness at the end of it to understand where it came from. Here comes the controversial part of the course. Don't no one get mad at me. So the AIs were built. They were given permission because it was done as a research. So they were all nonprofit and it was research. And they took the research and then they turned what was a free use of every bit of media they could get their hands on and turned to a for-profit company. And all this data that we call scraped or pulled is what they use to build a lot of these large language databases, which is why you keep hearing about data sets all the time. So the more information I give you, the more accurate you can of giving me the aggregated result. What is the most likely thing to go here? So they took all the public data that was available. They call it fair use, meaning that I should be able to have this information. Legal challenges, because people are saying, hey, you can't just take my stuff, but at the same time, it's shared, and that's very similar to how a human works. You've read books, you've seen art before, and it influences your decisions. You've seen other artists' work. You'll see a Daz gallery, and you'll look at it, a picture, and you'll say, oh my goodness, I love that cloud effect. Oh, I love that skirt. I love that dress. I love that outfit. I love that weapon. I want to get that prop. Where is that from? And now you're using it. So it's a very similar way that humans can be influenced by other things they see. That's what they're building their case on. That's where this came from. Specialized private data is a huge pin, because if I have an established IP, just because you can see it doesn't mean you can build and make derivative works off of my IP, which becomes problematic. You write a bunch of articles that are locked into a newspaper. I scan your articles and generate similar articles. You have a style of art that exists in the world. I study your style of work, and then I make that available as a choice. Open versus closed models is about this kind of stuff. Do you have a license to do this? Do I use a closed model? Daz Studio has a closed system where they have their own owned work that they pull from. So Daz owns its stuff, and therefore their stuff they can use. If you want to license Daz, you'd have to go to them and say, hey, we want to train our engine on that. Can we take some of your stuff? Adobe is considered the most, I want to pick the right word here, ethically safe because they internally train on their own stock footages, their own stock video. Some of these AI platforms have trained on YouTube videos, which is nothing that they asked for. They just said, okay, we need to use some of this stuff freely available on the internet. They'll pull videos from wherever. I used to get my stock footage from a site called Videvo, Videvo, and that site gave its, well, sold basically their library. I believe it's Kling. I could be wrong, but I got a notice that all the Videvo videos were now going to be owned by Kling and train its data. So sometimes in this sense, when you say, well, AI is theft, it's not all the complete strict rule that there's some artist somewhere being ripped off. A lot of them are enhancing their work. Problematic if you train it on your specific style to clean it up, then you're brushing against that IP. Don't use my work to clean up your results. But at the same time, there are lots of libraries that are being scraped that these companies actually have a license to use. So it's a gray area that's not as easy as it used to be to say, oh, this is all based on theft, right? We can't say that anymore because a lot of them have their own data sets that they've created on their own. And now they're also training AI on its own data set. So you're having AI training on AI, and it becomes a little bit gray and murky. So where we try to accelerate into the art part, let's get to the art part. The 30% rule for AI use. I did not invent this. This just came up and we have to actually mention this. The 30% rule is a guideline suggesting that artificial intelligence should be used for roughly 30% of a task. So it's a 30% rule. Simply put, if we look at it, 30% could be AI, right? Some part of our workflow is Daz Studio, right? This is all the assets, the environment, the iRay engine, your HDRI lighting, all the props, all of that is Daz Studio, right? If someone say, what do you use to create your art? Most likely you're going to say Daz Studio in some way. And then this part is the us part, right? We have to influence what we're going to keep from here. We have to control what we're going to use in Daz. We make decisions on the hair, the outfit, the clothing. We have to tweak the lighting. You know, no offense to Daz, but Daz likes to position itself as this easy to use software. It's free. Come on, join in. And then once you begin using it, you realize how much skill, technical skill, creative vision and ideas you have to get the most out of it. And, you know, that's not to be said because no one wants to think of there being a hard leap into breaking into being an artist that uses CGI. Well, the same thing is true for AI, right? This is the unknown secret. It's not you just typing in something and you arrive at art. You know it doesn't work that way. Everyone knows it doesn't work that way. The only people who don't know are people who don't use it and have heard stories. There's no way to prompt yourself to greatness or artistic, you know, an ethical use where you're just typing in stuff thinking you're going to get there. So this falls back to the rules of art. If you are doing clay, how much of it is the clay? How much of it is my hands? If I'm painting, how much of it is the oil in the palette? How much of it is me? If I'm doing watercolor, how much does the paper texture influence the way my water drips? All these things matter. And in the same sense, it matters here. How much is you? How much is the AI? If you're confused or concerned, 30% is a great bar. And again, I don't take credit for this. I didn't invent this. So humans handle 70%, the part that requires creativity, judgment, and emotional intelligence, right? That's the creative use. The reason you want to do that is because AI makes mistakes, right? You can't outsource your creativity to AI. You can't outsource the editing and the fixing of your work. to run with AI. So in this course, we're going to do a part where we're going to lead the AI. The human goes first. AI comes in to give us a 30% little booster. Then we're going to work parallel with AI. As I'm working, I'm pulling in the AI along with me to help. And then we're going to let the AI give us an initial boost of 30%, and then we're going to come in after. And the reason this has been done, and this is not for art, this is for the entire industries of the world, is that we know that AI has, quote unquote, an ability to hallucinate, where it's trying to please you. So if you ask AI for a result, it's going to make it up if it has to. Hey, show me, the research for this. Just make up a fake poll. It'll make up a fake research link. It'll make up stuff. If you make a painting with AI and say, make it look like a painting, it will put a fake signature on it. A big signature on some part of your artwork has to make it look like a painting. Even though it's your work, it's still going to throw something on there. It'll give you a fake canvas. Sometimes it puts the fake frame around the picture itself. So these are the parts where you as an artist have to kick in. Oh, an eye is off to the left. Oh, there's an extra finger. Oh, there's missing a finger. Oh, this shirt makes no sense. The collar's going the wrong way. These are all the parts where you don't give up. You don't give up your part of being an artist just because you've decided to lean into this AI thing. And it has not changed the rules of art. So we want to dive into our first session. Before AI showed up, what did we do? Right? This is before AI shows up. My goodness, I'm trying to be an artist. I'm working on stuff. What did I used to do before AI? Well, let's talk about that. I'm using an old version of Photoshop that I have here. And I'm going to pull in a piece of artwork, a picture that I have. I rendered this in Daz Studio. Disclaimer, the hair was done with 2 different layers. I did one version of her with hair, one without, and I used the one without because this haircut was poking through the outfit. So this is not the straight Daz render. There's my first disclaimer. Second, we had something weird down here with the coat buckling, and I just basically fixed that in Photoshop. And that's what I did. So to jump to the end before we run out of time, what I'm going to show you is how AI is doing nothing different than what we did before. It's just a different tool set, but the workflow, the idea is exactly the same. We're not changing to become something else. We're incorporating the AI tools into our workflow. So if you remember, back in the day, what did we used to do? Well, we would have a picture. We would go to the filter, stylize maybe, and we pick some stuff here. We could texture it. You guys remember this, right? They were sketches. This is what we used to do to turn our work into the look of a drawing. And we pick one of these and we start to play with that. I showed you advanced tools in one of the other class. We had actions, right? We had an action. So an action was, if I can remember where these used to be, we used to have actions where what you basically do is you perform. I'm trying to find out where my actions are. This is my old one. Here we go. You perform a row of actions in a row, no pun intended. And those actions would be like a formula or a recipe, almost like a Daz script. And then it would just execute all these steps in a row while you waited, and it would transform your work. I showed a lot of these to turn your work into a cartoon, to turn it into a hand drawing, an anime, black and white, effects, everything. So this is what we did before AI. So now that AI is here, why do we think we're somehow breaking new ground or new bread when we're doing the same thing we always did? Well, let's take this image, for instance, and I ran it through an action, and we got this. This is the same image after I ran it through a Photoshop action, which took about 6-7 minutes, so we're not going to go through that now. But this is one of the many actions that I had. I think I picked, I can't remember one of these, but these are all over the internet. Many of them are free, but this is what I did with the original picture. So this is nothing brand new that we haven't done before. Take your art, your Daz render, add a little bit of sauce to it using the tools that are available. What else do we have? Oh, let's show you that too. We'll stay with Photoshop while we're here. Filter, we have Redfield, right? Quad pencil. So we have programs like this that can actually add the filter effect, and it's a plugin. This is called Redfield. I also showed this in the comic class. So this is also an effect that we've done. And this is, once again, before AI, we had all these abilities right there for us. This was always here. Let's pull up a Redfield one, because I picked a very extreme example. Let me show you that. Look at that. That is the Painterly effect. And this is before AI. This is Redfield, a set of plugins. This is a suite of them. That is me using that before. Well, they weren't alone. Let us find Photo Sketcher, which is somewhere on my desktop. Photo Sketcher. And again, this is dating back when this was the thing. I want to create my DAZ render and add just a little bit of sauce to it. Just a little bit of sauce. And then you'd have Photo Sketcher. Let's open up a picture. And now I get to pick my choices. Right? Pencil sketch 1. Let's go with a pencil sketch and see what it does. Let's find the cat. Well, all right, let's zoom out a little bit so we can see the effect and get a preview of the effect. Usually I do pick the face. And we'll let it pick. And this is what it looks like on the face. So I could do that to the entire image. You can control edge threshold, intensity. This would be color intensity like saturation, overall. And there's tons of presets. Sketch black and white. Let's back it out a bit. Painting, here's a watercolor one. This might be one of the ones that I used. You can see the detail on the face. Different than a DAZ render, you can see that. So these are things that are no different than what we've always had. These are tools that have existed for a while. Let's show you something else. Dynamic Auto Paint. Version 8 is out now. This is version 6. I take my same DAZ render, and there's multiple art styles here that I can pick from. And this is a brief. And remember this part. If you're going to lock in on a part of this moment, remember right now how we're dialing through presets to add real-time painting effects to our artwork. And remember this moment, because this is going to come up. Obviously, I'm showing you the parallels with AI. But this is what we used to do before. Programs like this, I would start this running, and in about 5-6 minutes, we'll pick one. Let's pick one that looks a little strange. Let's pick that one, and we'll start this running. So what it's basically doing is going to go adjust the artwork, and it's going to simulate paint strokes for everything. And it's going to begin painting over this art. It's going to do the first layer, right? If you're a general traditional artist, this is your base layer of color, and it's going to slowly add the strokes in. And for the 9th time today, this is what we used to do before to create our art. And I'll show you some of the steps at the end of this that bridge the gap between this part of the process and then your final tinkering when we begin to talk about Photoshop and layers. But this can go on for a while, and we'll let that run. In the meantime, let's take a look at this. And we'll do a little bit of comparisons. This is our Photo Sketcher result, which was very nice. We also had a version of it, which was the pen. We'll place that on top. This is also Photo Sketcher. Let's pull in just a little bit so we could see some of this nice work. And again, this is what we had before. Then we had another one. Let's show another one. This was a medium painting set. So this is light paint work. So this almost looks like the DAZ render until we zoom in, and then you can see that it added a Painterly effect. So it could be, you know, super heavy, or we could go light with this effect depending on what we're looking for. Let's take a look at some of the, let's go back into Dynamic Auto Painter. It's gotten to the end of our work, and it's giving us a painting. Let's take a look at some examples that I had before. This is another painting that we had from Dynamic Auto Paint. And you can see how it gives us the painterly effect. This is the glamour setting. All from our DAZ render. This is the preset Leroy. This is probably one of the ones that looks similar. Look at this, right? True painting style already achieved. So, along with our tools, we'll say goodbye to that. Along with our tools, we want to make adjustments, right? That is nothing new. I'll try to speed this up because I know we want to get to start playing with some AI tools, but we need to know how we got here in case this becomes a question. So as you know, in Photoshop, we have all sorts of adjustments, right? Color balance we could play with, changing the tonality of it, changing the mood of the picture. This is all stuff that you should be familiar with, right? Saturation, if you want to add it, lightness, all sorts of things, levels. If you want to get absolute black and white in your image, there's levels, color balance, tone, tint, all of that already existed. We had plugins like this. Let us find Luminar 4. And hopefully it doesn't ask me about some payment and embarrass me in front of the whole class. All right, so this is how we could have adjusted lighting, right? So these are a bunch of lightings. Blockbuster is the old 80s, not 80s, 90s big blue look. Creative use of color, drama, textures, right? This is all stuff we've seen before. Look at that. Crushed blacks and whites, mystical, vintage looks, right? Added a lot of grain to it. So again, these are tools that we've had from the beginning. And it's not as if I'm creating something new that you've never seen before. Let's play with an overlay. This is also one of the techniques. I'll pull this up. Yeah, let's do overlays. Yeah, let's show that. So this is my same picture that I have. What an overlay is basically a gradient that depending on the blend mode offers different effects to your artwork. These are freely available on the internet. Also, you can make your own gradient. There's actually a tool for that. You can purchase overlays. The DAZ store sells a lot of Ron Divine has overlays with it where you can make enhancements and changes to your work. So this is one of the overlays that I place on it. How it functionally works, let me show you how it functionally works. Let's go get some overlays so I can actually show you the process and you can actually see it from scratch. So I have folders upon folders upon folders of overlays. I'm going to grab let me show you what it looks like before we pull it in and show you this for real. And let's just pick some random color ones. All right, so this is like an overlay that you can purchase, right? This is what the image would look like. It could be a JPEG. It could be whatever. From here, I can pull this item in, lay it on top of my work. I could stretch it myself, or I see that it's blue and green. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise so I get a nice blue on the bottom and a greenish tint on top. From here, I'm going to choose the blending option, and we're going to choose overlay. And that is how I arrive at a picture that has a different color tint than before. That would be the plain DAZ render. This is it using an overlay. So again, we're not going into this new realm of cheating. Because this is stuff that has already existed and has already been in your arsenal and tool set. And that's just one of the examples. Here's another one. With and without. Another. You just pick up a nice set of glossy tones in here. Extending would be very difficult to do to our render. Light leaks. We have light leaks added to this one, right? Sunlight beam, more light leaks, and my generic color treatment, which you can see here. So this is nothing that hasn't been in our arsenal or haven't been things that artists have been doing since you can remember. So this is nothing brand new that no one has thought of before, we didn't have as artists in our arsenal. So a little bit of this is just showing you that this is what we did before. We're going to maintain this workflow, this creative process and direction, even though the AI tools have arrived. And we're going to show you some of that now. The goal is not to replace our tool set, but add to it. Let us talk about what's available now. First, we're going to start with Adobe Firefly. Well, what is that? That is their AI engine that AI has been placed in a web browser. So because of a lot of the cloud usage and accessing the data sets, many of the AI tools that we have are going to be cloud sourced. So there's a website interface. And this is the Adobe Firefly website interface. In the mechanical course, the one that's pre-videotaped, I show you how to get here and how to get onto these screens. But this is Adobe Firefly. On down here, there is an account for this, and there is a charge. I can remember what it is, but it uses credits. I believe I'm in the free because this is not connected to my Adobe account. So I believe there's going to be a charge for using this. So if it pops up and tells me I can't save my work, don't make fun of me, because this may not be my actual account that I'm logged into. So I drag and drop a picture of the rain girl into the picture. Let's just see what we chose to do. Okay. So among the engines, the top three, which I don't see here, there's the, oh, this is the new one. So Firefly Image 5 is their new image, and this uses all of the Adobe data sets, which they say is the safest. Nano Banana is the new popular one that has come out. We're picking that to make these changes. So now we're back to the same palette of being able to choose what we want to do. And we get to decide, okay, how will I proceed? In later courses, when we start to use AI in parallel, we're going to add a lot more features. But for this one, let's just start with something simple and say change style to Painterly watercolor. Right? And let's add that. And maybe we're going to cheat a little bit because this is from next week. We're going to add, Tiffany's going to make fun of my spelling as my editor. Add puddles under character. I also have a bunch of these that I actually save when I'm working, but we're gonna do that now, and we'll generate that on our picture, and we're gonna let this work. Also, while this is working and thinking, we're gonna kill our old Photoshop. We're going to pull up our Photoshop 2026, which now has a lot of AI tools that we're going to take advantage of. In our Photoshop 2026, we can take our original DAZ image, we load it in here, and we have an ability to select everything. Once I select the entire image, we get to generative fill. This is the same tool as before. We can remove objects from it. We can paint on stuff, paint on top of things, invert my selection. We can create a mask, which it kind of automatically does in the layers folder. And we can also do adjustments. When this menu opens up, there's adjustments, the same thing with lighting that we did before. But generative fill, if we click that, we get a choice of a bunch of engines. This is using the Nano Banana that we picked from before. And we're going to start to do this inside of Photoshop. So what I want to do is let's go backwards to the very beginning. And I'm going to change style to Painterly. Let's go with oil painting this time. Oil painting. and I'll just put sharp details. And again, this isn't a class on prompting, so we're not going to go into the best prompts, the not dynamic lighting, other things like that. We're not going to change aspect ratios. We could do that with the other tools. And we'll let this start cooking. And now while this is cooking, let's go check back on our browser and look what we got. Now, if I attempt to download this, this is going to be like, you pay us money, Andrew. But now we have a very nice picture. It's done with watercolor. Looks nice. Let's save it. And we need to put it in our class folder. Oh, this is done too. Oh man, now it's time to get excited because we have so much nice looking stuff to look at. Digital Art Live. Let's take a look at what we got. This is really nice. Look at this. Huh? Very nice. And it added the puddles of water. Oh, it put a drop in her hand. See, that's a little bit of the hallucination stuff. We didn't ask her to do that. But this was a nice touch. We got raindrops added to the picture. They added them to the umbrella. It added a puddle underneath the character, which we asked for. And it changed it to a painterly style. So this would be considered mission accomplished for what we were trying to ask it to do. Now we can jump back into Photoshop and we have a different but similar result. And look at these nice details. Look at the water, right? Dripping down. Not only did it drop on the umbrella, it's dripping down the umbrella. Very nice. So let us select, let's keep pushing. Select everything. And let's play with this again. What else did we change last time? Well, we added the rain effect. We have a painterly effect. Let us now, what else can we do? Let's add the puddle. Add puddles to the street. And then let's do what we did with the overlays. Change lighting to sunset, evening, orange hues. The word hues might be a little bit of a stretch, but we'll leave it with that and let's see what this gets us. And we'll let this run. And again, these are the same tools that we just had. Let it run. Look at that now. So we have our orange tint. The sun is low, so the sky, you can imagine what HDRI it would take to make this. And it gives it the orange glow. We get our puddles in the street. We keep the effect of the translucent umbrella. The drops still stay on the image. And we get something very nice. So we've sort of taken our tools and given them a bit of a boost. Let's go back to our original and do some comparisons. Our original work straight from Daz with only some minor tinkering. And then we end up with this using our new tool set. So all we needed to do was have the AI give us some sauce on top. Obviously, as it is a workstation, we could keep going, but that's going to be in future installments. But we have a general idea of what's possible. Let's take a look at some more examples. Let's pull up. Let's have some fun. We'll look at this one. This is me doing one of the color adjustments. Obviously in Photoshop, you know that you could do cool effects, erase a bottom layer, a top layer. This would be me also picking up ideas from this. I saw this idea and I said, I like the idea of the color changing. That was done with Luminar. So Luminar 4 did that from Skylum. This is a Photoshop. This is Firefly, the painterly effect, right? This is the painterly effect. This is watercolor from Photoshop. Very nice. This is pen and ink from Photoshop. Pen and ink as a choice. So I want to show you some more stuff. So we're gonna have to come back and circle back to this because we have to step on it. So let's step on it a little bit and let's show you another engine. This is also very cool. So this is Kling, K-L-I-N-G. This has a huge suite. Mostly it's very popular for a lot of video work. For now, we're playing with a lot of the tools for just the images itself. But I've had this for a while and play with this for a while. And we're going to play with just one of the options in here to show you what else is capable and available to us. So I get rid of a picture and we're going to load that original Girl in the Rain, the straight DAZ render. This is kind of fun. So that's my reference image. And the reason these are here is if I scroll down, you'll see all the things I was working on before, which is future things I'm going to be showing you. So we loaded some of our postcards for the class so that this doesn't show you the answer already. So what we have is our image, and we could either choose what we want to do here, which is me changing things to black and white, or we can write in our instruction of what we want to change. So that pretty much works like the other ones you've already seen, but for us to advance into like a new little thing to play with, we're going to jump to the Restyle library. So this is us finding styles to apply to the image. And again, we're going way beyond because now we're getting into the hallucination part. We're getting to the part where it's going to give us extra things we weren't actually going for. So this is probably the experimental part of this, where we can pick a style that's already here. I'll pick something random. Let's go with Cotton Doll. And it's going to restyle this art to this. Again, we're rolling the dice here. Because sometimes when you get results, it'll keep it exactly as you give, as you asked. And other times it makes something completely outrageous that has nothing to do with what you were looking for. And we're also not going to give it any influence in here. Obviously, I would be typing change to watercolor, add puddles to the feet, do this, do that, and we'd end up in a similar place. Not the same, but similar, where these are worth comparing. If I was working on a commercial project, I'd probably try many different rolls of the dice to find the best one. But now we have our umbrella image. Let's pull this up and have some fun. We have our umbrella image. How cute is that? The spirit is there, the outfit is there, but this has restyled our work. And again, this is different than saying generate an image of a chibi type character on a street, in a whatever, etc., and then it just generates it on its own, and then I run around. This is based on our DAZ work. So the colors, the composition, the posing, all of that is based on our work. So we're using, even when we're going to push it to an extreme, it still shows how DAZ can be the foundation. This is Kling. Kling has overlap with many of these other things, but I want to try to get you as many views as you can on different ways of approaching this. But this is Kling. It does video. It has video generation, all sorts of things. It can make icons, avatars. It's a big suite. But for our purposes this week, we just showed you how to do one layer. Let's go with something else. Let's go with something else that keeps us going in this same direction. And again, you make your DAZ render so you have absolute control over the character, the model, the clothing, the set, and then from there, I want to use my AI tools on top of it to pull it in to another layer. Let's take a look at some Kling. So this is, so that I'm not going to pull it up again. Let's close these out before I get totally confused at what we're looking at. Here comes the fun part. More fun. So this is what it would look like if I use Kling the same way we did previously. right? That would be me using Kling saying change the style to watercolor. You know, this is colored pencil. This is change the style to this, change the style of that, right? This was one of the ones where I told it make me a sketch, and it just made the character go to the bathroom, and this is not what we were looking for, right? Accidental. This was the anime setting where I chose to go anime. I do know many of us in the Dash Circle are looking to make an anime-looking comic, right? There's all sorts of anime shaders. There's anime characters. There's anime presets for everything. Now, this is also a way of taking your actual Dash render and achieving that look. So even with an extreme thing, you still can keep the major control in your hands. And although I'm making anime type stuff, I don't want to just generate anime girl on a street doing whatever. I'm going to make it first in DAZ. Manual sketch mode. Looks almost like a photocopy type style that we picked up. Let me show you some bad stuff here. We got to get to some bad stuff. This is going too nice. Manual sketch. Before we're out of time, let's try to get to Midjourney. And we're showing you Midjourney because Midjourney is so popular that everyone's using Midjourney. I'm going to tell you the reason we didn't make the whole course based on Midjourney is that it's very restrictive. Certain words, keywords, will make the image not generate. So sometimes if it finds a word it doesn't like, it'll just, it also mistakes clothing for nudity. It does that sometimes, which is, slightly problematic that it can do that. Also, the ability to hallucinate. Let us show you a hallucination. This is kind of funny. I don't mean to knock Midjourney. I love Midjourney. It's a great tool. It's very popular among artists. But to be honest, it's restrictive right now. You say the word bikini, you can't make the picture. You say translucent, even the umbrella, the translucent, or see-through, any of that type stuff, it triggers. And we did not use this for the course. Although it did most of the things we needed it to, it still had a slight problem with it not liking some of the words that we used. So let's pick, let's go ink sketch, and colored pencil. Let's try some descriptions. Harsh, dark lines. And see what we get. And while this is working, I'm going to show you this fun moment. Let's enjoy ourselves for a little bit. This was one of my previous retexture attempts and how it took the picture and recreated it and didn't listen at all. And this is a hallucination where it was supposed to make this. So I gave it this, and instead it gave me this, which had nothing to do with what I was asking for it. So sometimes you just get a nice, happy surprise and something interesting, even though that's not what I was trying to feed it. And it created that instead. I saved it anyway because I didn't want to pretend we never get anything outside of the course type stuff. Happens. While this is running, how much time do we have? We have 9 minutes before we jump into live illustrations. Let's take a look at Freepik, which is another editor that does a similar thing. This is a comprehensive suite. In the pre-recorded class, I do go through all the buttons and options and all these interfaces and explain that. But for the live session, if you are inspired to play with one of these, you'll be able to figure out what to play with, which one it does. But this I go over in week 4, and we go heavily into every tool here and what it does and how it works. But for today, since this is our intro and we're having fun this week, let's just play with the actual DAZ render. And we're going to play with this the same exact way. We check on Midjourney, which gave us a very scary woman in one of those hallucination type bot styles. But this is what sometimes happens. Oh my, we have a monster that showed up. Faceless person. And a dead person. So apparently Midjourney today, maybe it's the harsh, dark lines that made it say, oh no, you know, harsh dot lines, we didn't like that. In free pick, let's go with something that we already had. We're going to pick one of our prompts that we've been saving. I also explained in the regular class that we save all of our work as we go along. So I'm saving all my prompts. I'm writing notes for everything, but we're not doing that today because we're accelerating. But normally these are all saved and I have these in my script. So we're going to let this start to work. We're not heavily concerned. I think we all understand what the different engines do. I think right at the end, I want to push into the next level of this. This is a sneak peek from week 4. And we get 2 choices. If I want to keep going, I can generate any number and just keep making them. Or I can pick and choose and save the one that I like a lot. Or I can hit save and continue, which means it will save all my work up to this point. And I can revisit it. But something like this, let's just show this today because we're here. I'm going to save my work that I like this one. We're going to export it. I'm going to save it. And we're going to pop into Photoshop and do some stuff. So I'm going to open up my general raincoat picture. And again, these are all techniques. I didn't create any of these techniques. And this is going to give me a bit of a problem. Something happened with this aspect ratio. So this is not going to be our best example. Let us pull up the stuff from this week. No cheat codes. We're going to pull up the actual stuff from this week. Let me show you this before we switch gears. I want to show you this. And this is doing it again. All right, well. I'm using different programs. There you go. I don't know why it's not listening. Always during a class live. Okay, so this was my original render, and then I had my black and white version. So the same cheat codes apply. If I go to blending option, so you understand, if I want to keep the black, if I want to get rid of the black, I use screen. If I want to keep the white, what I would use is multiply. So when I pick multiply, it removes the white and I get to keep the black, which is the opposite of the screen effect. And this is, again, what is this like? This is an overlay, which is why we showed that earlier. This is the overlay effect from earlier being used now on the AI, let's say this again, on the AI generated piece, my DAZ render underneath. And this is how, even though I'm using AI assets and AI filtered work, it still comes back to me at the end. And now I'm combining my DAZ render on the bottom with my AI filtered result, and I'm going to season to taste because I'm the artist. And I'm going to season to taste. And all the rules of art apply. Looking for a duplicate. Oh, way on the top. So normally I would call this like play with me. You're going to see that too in the course when I begin to really play with things. So what I want to do is have some fun with a special effect. Something interesting. So what I'm going to do is take this and we're going to create some sort of vignette type effect. We're going to grab a brush. Why not? Sure, why not? Maybe not. Some of you know where I'm going already with this. And we're going to play with this and create a bit of a vignette around this. We're going to see me do this over the course of of time, and we're going to play with this a little bit. And let the outsides turn back into the DAS render, and let the inside be basically the line, and I'll increase it. You've seen us do this before. Now we're going to take a layer of this. I'm going to place one on top. Right? I see that on top. I have my layer. And now what I'm going to do is filter. We're going to do a bit of blur. Let's play with the Gaussian blur. Just enough to be a little fresh. Right? And I've said that also in the live course, that sometimes you just want to make sure that the effect that we're doing, we'll put our original back, and we'll just let it blur out around some of the edges of our character and increase the focus on our character. So, to see the full effect, look here. Sharp focus, blurred. Sharp focus, blurred. And you can look at what it does to the street details, and that serves to focus in on the character. So even though I'm playing with this and we're having fun, doing all sorts of things with it, I haven't given up my artistic edge and touch to want to touch these different images.
That's really interesting, Drew. Any questions before we close out from the free session? I'm kind of curious about how you could test the AI to try and use filter type words on artwork to see how well that applies, but it's going to be Photoshop that wins, I think, on accuracy of how that filter is working.
Me physically controlling it and dialing it in and picking which layer I want, how much of the effect to add, adding multiple effects, that stuff still remains in my hands. So it becomes very cool that I can do that and control it. But yeah, as an option, if I get extremely specific, it will tend to listen or hallucinate badly. And they are prompts you can look up, like key phrases that it understands, like dynamic lighting. And in week 3 and 4, we're going to talk about some of the keywords like focal length, depth. You can tell it the lens type. So there is an entire sub-understanding of how key phrases can guide it along to get more exact results. But I feel like that's sliding towards technology and less artistic if I begin to dial in too much and try to exert too much technical control. I'd rather have the AI be a bit more of a filter and a friend giving input than really be like a slave that I'm just commanding with exact orders and instructions.
So folks, if you've enjoyed Drew's approach today, keeping the artist in the driving seat with all of these new tools that are flooding our internet, please join us on the full 4-session course. Drew has created a great amount of extra content for the course. It turns out about 5.8 gigabytes of bonus videos, because it took me that long to upload it earlier today into a private folder for the class members. So the class members get that. They get 4 sessions. It's going to probably work out for 1.5 plus hours, I would say, normally with Drew. The recordings of those, and a private forum where we're working together and talking about these approaches. So if anyone would like to join us on this, please do. And but thank you for joining us to this point, and I hope it's given you pause for thought, giving you some ideas, and giving you a feeling that you can approach this in perhaps a greater positive light than before. Thanks everybody, and all course members and Drew, I've just emailed you all the new Zoom link, the Zoom link for the next session. All right, see you there. Take care. Bye bye.